Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leanna Levine-Reisner. I am the Network Director of Plant-Powered Metro New York, which is a community-based organization that's committed to our collective health empowerment through whole food, plant-based nutrition, which is an evidence-based approach to nutrition that can prevent, treat, and even reverse chronic illness. So while we normally prefer to offer live sessions to build community around health and nutrition, we're offering this program as part of a web series during this season of COVID-19. And we're so glad that you've come to learn with us today and to find community in the midst of our social distancing. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box and let us know where you're coming from, whether you're in the metro area or beyond. And if you have something you'd like to learn today, please go ahead and put it there as well. As a reminder, as people join, please mute your lines. And we'll be taking questions today, mostly via the chat box, just due to the size of the group. You can post your questions at any point during the course of the conversation, although we might save certain topics for the end. But I will now hand it over to Dr. Ron Weiss, who is joining us from New Jersey, a member of the Plant-Powered Metro New York Medical Advisory Board, and a primary care physician who has a farm as well and practices food as medicine, and also is really on the front lines seeing what's happening in our communities with the COVID-19 virus. So Dr. Weiss, why don't you introduce yourself a little more as you wish and let folks know what we'll be chatting about today.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. And thank you for joining us today. And I appreciate all of your thank yous. It's very meaningful to me. So I think maybe where I can begin is that, I am asked to speak to groups and I am asked to lecture. And I do lecture from time to time across the nation and at special events. But I consider myself a working doctor. I'm a working primary care doctor. That's what I do. And so, in the past month, I have been seeing a lot of sick patients. Identified the first patient in New Jersey to be diagnosed with COVID-19. And this patient was sent to the hospital and had a stormy course. And after seeing that patient, I was placed on mandatory quarantine by the state for 2 weeks. Thank God I remained negative. My testing was negative, and I did not contract the illness. But that was in the beginning of March. Since then, I've been back in urgent care, seeing about 70 patients a day. 60 of them have coronavirus. And as of my last shift that I did on Monday, I had a 16-hour shift, and there was quite some sick people. About, I would say, 5 of them we had to call ALS to bring to the hospital because they had very low oxygen levels. So, I do have clinical experience in evaluating COVID-19, and I now, in the last month, I think have developed an appreciation for really what COVID-19 looks like and how we can diagnose it even without the benefit of any tests, which even at this day are few and far between. So I can answer any of your questions in that regard. I guess what we would like to start off with is by addressing how we can act to shore up our immune defenses and our respiratory system against the coronavirus. So I guess, Leanna, I'll take questions at the end. Is that the way you want to work this?
That's fine. I think as questions come in, if anything seems particularly relevant, I'll interrupt you, if that's okay.
Okay. So how long would you like me to speak for until we take our Q&A session?
You can give it 20 to 30 minutes, however long you need.
Okay. Okay. So I think maybe a place to start with is the frustration levels coming from all different directions, because we are completely unprepared for this. It has been known for decades that ever since the last pandemic a century ago, that someday we would have another pandemic, but we are just unprepared. There's been epidemiological modeling going on for a century that predicted this. And even on top of that, over the last 30 years or so, there has been an aggressive escalation of new infections, new viral infections that kill human beings and that cause significant disease and bad outcomes. And I'm sure you are familiar with some of these names that have now been in the media, going back to the 1980s, starting with HIV, and then West Nile virus, and Zika, and Ebola, and swine flu, and the SARS virus, and now this virus. And it is predicted that as we go on, as the years go on, that humanity will be confronted with more and more of these threats. They will become more aggressive. And it has gotten to the point where the UN now ranks pandemics like this one just as much a threat to humanity and our global society as is climate change. And the amazing thing is that both threats have a common co-generator. It is agriculture, and primarily animal agriculture. A lot of the viruses that I just mentioned, including, as you well know, the COVID-19 virus, these viruses, as far as we can tell, have emanated all from animal agriculture and animal husbandry, the raising of animals for food, not from wild animals. Either the raising of animals for food or the consumption of livestock or wild animals. So I think this is especially fitting today for the wonderful organizer of Plant Powered Metro New York to put together this informational session to remind us that when we eat plants and a diet of whole plant foods, we're doing it for reasons beyond the clearing of our arteries, or reasons beyond the reversal of our autoimmune diseases or the prevention of stroke, or maybe to give yourself a good quality of life as you get into your 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, or maybe to significantly pare down the exhaustive pricing and just destructive economics of our healthcare system. It's more than that. It is really to save the world. So that's a little historical background for you. Now we're going to talk about how eating a diet of whole plant foods what it can do for you personally. So, there are a whole set of diseases which are known as the diseases of immune dysregulation. And you're probably familiar with a lot of these conditions. Now, when I say immune dysregulation, what it means is your immune system is not behaving rationally and is not behaving in a way that gives you optimal health. So there are two sides of this coin. There are the aspects of immune dysregulation that cause autoimmune diseases. And in this situation, your immune system makes a mistake and identifies an otherwise ordinary molecule as an enemy and misinterprets this and then starts attacking self. It starts attacking you, your own body, parts of your own body. Like in rheumatoid arthritis, it's your joint linings. In lupus, it can be your kidneys. In multiple sclerosis, it can be the linings of the sheathing or insulation around your nerves. And we're beginning to understand why this is, but we've gotten as far as knowing that something very wrong happens in the intestinal tract with all of these diseases, where immune mistakes are made and the body starts to direct instead of, it starts to direct immune attacks against self, against your own body. So that's immune dysregulation, problems with the regulation of your immune system. But then, of course, we have another kind of immune dysregulation, and that is when the immune system does not attack you, your tissues in and of themselves. But instead, what happens is the immune system sees an enemy and it starts to attack the enemy, but it goes overboard. It goes way, way, way overboard. And examples like this are asthma and eczema and allergic rhinitis. If you've ever wondered, if you suffer from springtime allergies, which are now the season, starting the season, why can some people walk around completely immune to the calorie pear blossoms on the trees, and you are miserable? Well, it's because the people who are immune don't see those little pollen molecules as a problem, and your immune system does and overreacts to them. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the problems we most fear in the coronavirus epidemic are not that we are going to get a cold, not that we are going to have some body aches or a fever of 100.5 degrees for a few days. That's not it. It's because some of us, perhaps, depending on what risk category you're in, anywhere between 2 and 15% of us will get into such severe difficulty and get into a condition known as acute respiratory distress syndrome, or ARDS, where you will go into respiratory failure and die unless aggressive measures are taken to save your life, such as placing you on life support, these ventilators that you see we're scurrying around trying to get. And even then, some people die. And why is that? Well, it's because your lungs fill up with proteinaceous fluid. It's not that the coronavirus itself is actually destroying your lungs. It is that your own immune dysfunction, your own immune system is becoming so furious that it pours out inappropriate amounts of what's called humoral immune molecules. They're the molecular directors of your immune system. And when this happens, this is called a cytokine storm. There's a molecular storm that floods your lungs with fluid. You literally drown. Your lungs are drowning in fluid, and we don't have any medicines. We've had known this condition for years and years, not coronavirus, but this respiratory distress syndrome, which can occur not only with coronavirus, but it can occur with sepsis or blood poisoning. I've seen it occur with influenza. And so that's what happens to us. And I think at the end of the day, all of us on this call, we're really not afraid of getting a little low-grade temperature for a few days. We're afraid for ourselves and our family member of going into respiratory failure. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about how we can best avoid that. So first off, let me put in a plug for a diet of whole plant foods. Just in general, a diverse diet of whole plant foods. And when I say a diverse diet, that means a whole range, a diverse palette of many different plant foods, as many as that you can get in within a day. Bringing all kinds of tens of thousands of different plant molecules known as phytonutrients into our gut, which are absorbed into our immune system. That kind of diet is hands down, as a general diet, the best way to gear up your immune system, to ratchet it up, to bring its defenses to a higher level so it can first attack more ably the coronavirus. Now, we've known for many years that eating such a diet would prevent us from having coronary artery disease and hypertension and diabetes. And now, in recent years, we know that such a diet can actually reverse these conditions. And this is so important, especially if you or your loved ones or your friends have diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cerebrovascular disease, like strokes. And the reason why it's so important is because when we look at the data coming out of Wuhan, China, we realize that these groups have between 3 to 5 times the risk of death if they're attacked by coronavirus, as does a person who has no underlying medical conditions. So it's always nice to know that even if you're sitting on this call, or you have loved ones or friends that have these conditions, today you can adopt a whole food plant-based diet, and immediately, within days to a week, before the coronavirus gets to you, you can remediate these chronic conditions that you've had for years. And I would encourage all of you to reach out to your friends who you know have these conditions and tell them to go plant-based now, because the best thing that you can do for them, and the best thing that they can do for themselves, is take away these disease risks, these chronic underlying disease risks, because they're significant. Okay, so let's say for all of us who are eating these diverse whole plant foods, if we want to kick our game up a notch and we want to be the best we can be, how can we do that? Well, I'm in a situation like that. You know, I am frightened as well. I see all these coronavirus patients. They're very sick. I have very inadequate protection. I'm given one mask and a ripped gown to wear every day. That's it, over the entire shift, because we don't have enough supplies. And I must do the best I can, and I have faith that that eating my plants, and not just eating my plants, but really focusing on specific things, will get me through this. It is likely that what I'm doing, I think, even if I do get sick, and I do expect to contract the illness, that it will be a mild presentation. So, what am I doing? Well, I'm focusing on a handful of foods, in addition to all the fantastic things we know and we love, all the fruits and the vegetables and the legumes and the seaweed and the whole grains and the starchy roots. I concentrate on a handful of things. Um, First thing is um, mushrooms. I make sure to have at least a cup of mushrooms daily, of cooked mushrooms. And you know what? Oh, you've got to hang on 1 second because I've got to run into the room. I have a show and tell for you. Give me 1 second. I'm here on the farm.
We're waiting for show and tell. Feel free to put questions in. I am looking at them, and we'll bring your questions forward in due time. If you're a mushroom lover, feel free to add something to the chat box about ways that you like to eat mushrooms.
Anyone knows what these are? Can you see them?
Hold them up close to your face. Beautiful. Okay.
Anyone?
We've
Do
got
you have
some.
any guesses? You can write it in.
Do you take mushrooms?
Yes. Are these the most beautiful shiitakes you've ever seen?
Beautiful.
These are shiitakes. Freshly grown, right? By Wendy Yurgoski. She's our mushroom lady here on the farm. So, by the way, you can do this yourself. It takes about 1.5 years, but you just need some logs. You can inject them with spores, and that's it. You just leave them there for 1.5 years, and in about 9 months to 1 year, they start having these magnificent mushrooms. So, mushrooms, we know, and all kinds of mushrooms, and you don't have to get fancy like this. You can even go to the corner and get just white button mushrooms. So, mushrooms have special proteins in them that trigger our immune system to jack up production of IgA. IgA are the first line of defense. When a virus comes in to your mucous membranes, your mouth, your respiratory linings, there are immune cells that make IgA. They're antibodies that initially attack a virus. And we know there are studies that have shown that people who eat mushrooms every day, it was a randomized control study, significantly increase their antibody levels to attack viruses. Okay, so I concentrate on that. Number two is my garlic. So the active compound in garlic is called allicin. And I know you can get it in stores. You can get allicin capsules and tablets, but that's not what whole plant foods is about. Whole plant foods is not about taking supplements, dead, dried powders in a pill. It's about eating living things. The life force from these living things are transferred into you. Okay, so you get fresh garlic. Don't get allicin pills. Get fresh garlic. And what I like to do is because I want to eat a lot of it now, probably more so than I can do if I were eating it raw. And the eating of it raw does contain the most allicin. However, you can't, it's hard to eat a lot of it. So I eat some raw, and then the majority of it I eat roasted. So what I do is I take the bulb of garlic, I separate all the cloves, I just cut off with a very sharp paring knife the very bottom where the clove joins the base, and then I don't remove the papers from the cloves. I just toss them into a Pyrex dish in the oven, and I roast it like between 350 and 400 degrees. So it becomes nice and soft and flavorful. and then I eat double the amount of those that I would the raw garlic. So I think about now I'm eating 2 of those bulbs a day. That's what I do. Whole bulbs of roasted garlic.
Dr. Weiss, can I interrupt you for just a sec? There are a few questions specifically about mushrooms here. One is it okay to use a mushroom powder which concentrates the amount of mushrooms that you're getting?
Where does the mushroom powder come from?
A particular one mentioned is from Four Sigmatic. Sounds like a company. We don't know.
You know what? That's like taking a pill. See, I know what this is because I can see it. It's like I know a tomato when I'm eating a tomato. I don't know what is in powders or pills. If somebody wanted to make money, they can just give you some kind of white powder. It doesn't have to be mushroom. And I'm not saying that Four Seasons or whatever company is doing that, but the former Attorney General of New York State, Eric Schneiderman, his office went into GNC and into Vitamin Shop and the other major supplement retailers a few years ago and launched a class action suit against them because half of all the powdered supplements and pills and stuff they found on the shelves did not have the ingredients that were listed on the label. So who knows? I like eating whole plant foods.
Got it. Yeah. And when you say that you eat an amount of mushrooms that is equivalent to 1 cup, is that before or after cooking?
After cooking.
After cooking. Great.
And just for you, if you want to know, so simple. I just take my organic, right? You don't want to buy conventional produce because you're so careful doing what you're doing. Why do you want to eat all these good plants and then have poison on them? So you don't want pesticides on them. So I take my organic mushrooms. I just put them in the same dish and put it on the top rack in the oven, 500 degrees broil, 8 minutes. Delicious. No salt, no nothing, no oil. They're just delicious. Eat them like candy.
Great. And there are questions also about raw versus cooked. Can you explain what the issue is with raw mushrooms? And also there's a question about roasting garlic and the nutritive values, how they change when they're cooked. Do you have any comments?
It's that the allicin, which is that active compound we're looking for, which, by the way, I didn't get to tell you that, but that doesn't increase IgA. But what the allicin does is it actually builds up natural killer cells and all kinds of other white blood cells and does other things to specifically calm down that cytokine storm. It's amazing that it has this the garlic has these dual properties. It enhances your natural killer cells, which are the main white blood cells that early launch the attack against coronavirus. But at the same time, it makes sure that your network directors, your molecules, don't get out of hand and give you ARDS. So your lungs are flooded with fluid. Okay? So it's like the perfect combination to thwart immune dysregulation. So as far as the garlic is concerned, the cooking methods, yes, for garlic, cooking, all kinds of cooking reduces the concentrations of that active compound. So it's okay. You can just eat more of it. So if you eat, it's hard to eat a lot of raw garlic in any event because it's powerful. So roasting it makes it nice and mellow and delicious. And so you just eat double that amount. Roasting, by the way, is the most gentle form of cooking, much more gentle than is like sauteing in a pan or boiling it. So you preserve more of the allicin with the roast. As far as the mushrooms are concerned, so the most common class of mushrooms is the white button mushroom, whose genus includes the portobello mushroom. It includes the cremini mushroom and the baby bellas, any of those brown little mushrooms. So they all come from the family of agaricus. And those agaricus family mushrooms have a molecule called agaritine. Agaritine is a potent carcinogen. And I know you're thinking, what? Like, how did Mother Nature play that trick on us? I thought you're telling us mushrooms are so healthy and then they have a potent carcinogen. They do. And we haven't quite figured this out yet. We know it's very cancerous, cancer causing, that molecule. But we also know that that it is very heat labile. So when you cook these mushrooms, the garitine levels are significantly decreased. So I tell the patients, never eat that family of mushrooms raw, the agaricus family. You should always cook them at high temperatures. These beauties, you can eat them raw if you want. And like lion's mane and other kinds of species of mushrooms, they don't have that molecule. But the portobellos, the creminis, the white mushroom, they do. So you have to be careful. Like, I wouldn't eat a spinach salad with raw sliced white mushrooms on it. Wouldn't do that. And you know what? For some reason, I think that in Mother Nature is so powerful and wise that someday we will probably find out that even though there's this potent carcinogen in the mushroom, I'll bet you that the mushroom has sort of antidote agents in it. There's something about the mushroom that neutralizes these molecules in the agaricus species that makes it safe for us. But we just haven't gotten there yet. So in the meantime, cook them. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, great. Do you want to share with us a few other things you're eating?
Yes. So the cruciferous plants. So if all of you want to do a little exercise now and just type in all of the cruciferous members of the plant family we know, it'll take you a long time. You have in New York City, New Jersey, we probably have access to about 40 different ones. But I'm going to name some of the common ones, and I'm going to let you, as we're sitting here, see if you can give us some of the rarer ones or less often thought of ones. But they're all good. It's the broccoli family, the broccoli, kale, yes, cabbage, yes, Brussels sprouts. But I want tough ones. I want the ones that nobody thinks of. And so the reason why pod choy, no, not beets. Beets are in the Swiss chard family. We need only the members of this family because they have special molecules. They're called isothiocyanates. They're sulfur-bearing molecules. And these unique molecules, yes, bok choy, these unique molecules fit a special keyhole receptor in our gut lymphocytes. No other molecule in the world, I don't care if it's in granite, chickens, wood, there's no other molecule on planet Earth that fits into this receptor. No other plant food. It's only this family. And all of the members have it. And this molecule, once it fits into this receptor, it turns on and activates the lymphocyte and gives us a beneficial and protective immune response. Not just in our gut, but it fans out through our entire body. Now, if you've been reading, you know that the coronavirus has now been, in the last few weeks, been cataloged as affecting the GI system. I don't know if you know that. That first patient that I saw in the state, oddly enough, he had diarrhea as his presenting symptom. I didn't send him to the emergency room because he had diarrhea. I sent him to the ER because his heart rate was going at 130 times a minute, which was not sustainable. That was a red flag. That's why I sent him. However, it just goes to show you that the coronavirus is in your gut too. And you do want a strong immune system down there as well. And that's what these cruciferous plants do for us. So just one little tip with them. So I like to eat a minimum of 8 ounces of these raw cruciferous leafy plants every day. And it's okay to eat them cooked. If you eat cooked, you got to eat more because you're not getting, the cooking methods reduce these sulfur molecules and access to them. And the other thing you should remember is that in order to access these special molecules, you need a special catalyst molecule that is included in the raw version of all of these plants, but is missing when you cook them because it's destroyed by heat, this special catalyst beginning molecule. So what you should do is, if you want to eat frozen broccoli, which by the way is cooked, right? You know that all frozen vegetables are heated before they're frozen that you buy in the store. So remember, if you're eating frozen chopped kale from Whole Foods or in a bag or frozen broccoli, that's been heated. So you need to introduce that living enzyme from a living plant. So eat a radish, okay? That's in the cruciferous planet. Just pop a red radish into your mouth, chew it up, then eat your frozen broccoli, or then eat your steamed kale. So you introduce the living active enzyme into your stomach at the same time that you have the cooked versions that have been deactivated. And then that sampling of that live enzyme will activate the cooked serving of cruciferous greens, and you'll get all the benefits.
So Dr. Weiss, I want to interrupt here just to ask a very practical question before we get back to the science. What do people do if they're having limited access to these foods? Do they need to, go out and risk being exposed to the virus in the market so that they can get the foods that they would like? Or what do you recommend people do if they don't live on a farm like you do?
Well, I think there are a lot of choices. First of all, how many minutes do I have? So, if you're that fearful you can't go out, I guess get delivery services if that's an option for you. Let's say if you're a breast cancer patient and you're getting infusions of immune lowering drugs. Maybe I would think twice before going to a grocery store. I might. Or maybe if I'm 87 years old, that's the highest risk factor, people who are very elderly. Maybe I would think twice before associating with people in a grocery store. So you could order from home. You could have these things delivered to you through, I guess, Amazon, now that they've taken over Whole Foods. If you can go to a grocery store and your risks are not that, frightening, I guess I would, practice all the safe distancing and hygiene techniques that we know of. By the way, the USDA at this point and the CDC maintains that coronavirus is not transferred in food. Go figure. Their bulletins recommend that you really can't get it from buying produce in the store. Like if you go and you buy a bunch of kale that somebody else handled, you can't get coronavirus, they say. So all I can do is just go by their recommendations. Let's say you were really freaked out and you were worried that the CDC is not giving us the correct information. Well, you could go into the grocery store, make sure you're practicing all your hygiene techniques, with a credit card and Purelling it down and then not touching anyone, staying 6 feet away, get all your stuff, get to your car, wipe down your steering wheel and, do all of your crazy things. And then when you get home, you could wash off the kale and then you could boil it, because heat destroys it. So you'd have to eat more of it, but you could heat it. That kills coronavirus. So, and remember, cooking does, heat does. So let's say going forward, or let's say you're still in your house and with limited access to stuff. You could grow your own stuff. I mean, I know we're on a farm and we're very fortunate, but sprouting your own seeds on a windowsill, which you can do in an apartment in New York City, For example, broccoli seeds. You can sprout, and the broccoli seeds come up within, what, a week? And you have fresh greens. They are extremely potent in these sulfur molecules, so much that you have to limit your consumption of them. For example, whereas you could eat pounds of kale or broccoli, you cannot eat more than, let's say, a cup and a half of the broccoli sprouts per day, because you would have a lethal dose of these powerful plant molecules. So you have to be careful. So that's a way of maybe shrinking down and focusing on these plants. And if you have access to a garden, if you live in New Jersey or in the exurbs of New York, now is the time, people. Get your seeds, Johnny's or High Mowing or Fedco, all sell organic seeds. Get them now. Now is the time. You can start them on your windowsill in the house. The garden in another month in our area, it'll be safe to plant outside, and you can do it. But you want to get going. A lot of these things you can grow on your own. Last thing I want to say is, if any of you are familiar with the Victory Garden campaigns of World War I and World War II, we have statistics, federal statistics, that just in 1 year, if you think that, how much could I eat? How much could I grow? A lot. In 1 year, just in 1943, during World War II, the public's victory gardens in their backyards and in parks and schoolyards grew 40% of all the produce that was consumed in the United States, just in 1 year. Right? So you can do it.
Amazing. Can you talk to us a little bit more about mucus and the role that it has in COVID-19, and whether foods that are mucus forming are complicit in advancing symptoms?
Well, mucus is a secretion, is an inflammatory secretion. That's what it is. And it is within this mucinex, I was going to say, mucus is contained all of these enemies, these powerful molecules that fight the virus, right? And that's what gets out of hand in the cytokine storm. Your lungs are drowning in these fluids and mucus. It's just too much. So it does serve a purpose, but to an extent. And that's why I was telling you that regulating, first of all, you do want mucus, because you do want some, because that's your defense mechanism, but you don't want to drown in it. So I think drinking a lot of water and making sure you're hydrated will make sure that your mucus is not inspissated. That's the medical term we use when people get into trouble with mucus. It gets thickened and sticky and starts clogging and is not easily liberated. Asthmatics are famously known for this. They have inspissated mucus, and that's what gets them into trouble. Their airways start clogging up with this thick mucus, which they can't get out. And it causes airway plugging. So drinking a lot of mucus, and by the way, all of you know that asthma is readily reversible and preventable with whole plant foods, right? If any of you know asthmatics, you tell them, because a whole plant food diet, a high level in it, is the most powerful medicine against asthma. It is not albuterol or inhaled steroids or prednisone. I've had many patients on all those medicines for years. They do help them, but they were hooked onto them. All of my asthmatic patients, whenever they adopted a high-level diet of whole plant foods, they never took medicines ever again, never got asthma attacks, never got this sticky mucus. So that anecdote just tells you what a diet of whole plant foods does for this thickened mucus that asthma is famous for.
Yeah, and let's talk about liquids for a little bit. Is regular old tap water just fine for being hydrated, or do you recommend something distilled? Or
in the best world, in the best possible world, I recommend to our patients that they have reverse osmotically filtered water. The reason why is because, recent information shows that water supplies are pretty contaminated or are becoming more and more contaminated with environmental pollutants and all kinds of things. So because of that, I think that's the safest bet if you want to make sure that you're not getting drugs in your water and fire retardants and lead and arsenic and perchlorinated chemicals and all this stuff, pesticides, because reverse osmosis does remove it, plastics and hormone disruptors. And it does, but the problem is it's very wasteful of our water supply. That's what it ends up being. So, and it's very expensive to have these reverse osmotic systems. So I think the next best option would be after that, which doesn't quite remove all of the contaminants, but more of them than other systems, is just the activated charcoal. So I recommend that all of our patients, they should never drink tap water. All the water, regular use. I'm not saying if you go out to a restaurant or something, you're not going to drink the water, but in regular usage in daily life, all of your water should be filtered by one of those two methods.
Great. And some folks had asked about green tea and other even preparations of Chinese herbal medicines and the ways that they've been applied to COVID patients in China. Do you have any comments on sort of more medicinal liquid preparations?
Whole plant foods.
Gotcha.
Whole plant foods. If you want to get one of these bottles that come from China of liquid tinctures or herbal extracts, what's in it? I don't know. I don't know what's in it. Maybe lead. We know that a lot of stuff that comes from China is contaminated with environmental contaminants. And in fact, if you are drinking green tea, or if you do drink matcha, which is excellent, it's a wonderful. It has green tea leaves have epigallocatechin, which is a very unusual and hard to get plant molecule, and it's highest in green tea. And we know this is an anti-cancer agent. It does all kinds of fantastic things. But the tea from China is almost universally lead contaminated. So make sure if you're drinking this stuff that it doesn't come from China. And sometimes it's very hard to tell that. The green tea supplies have been analyzed from Japan and seem to be that if it is grown in Japan, it's safest. Even organic green teas and matchas that come from China are leaded. So that's just a little example. I just like to eat whole plant foods, basically. So my spices, my herbs that I take are herbs. So I will go, I will eat turmeric. I eat turmeric every day. Raw cocoa powder every day. Raw cardamom dried every day. Cloves every day. Ginger every day. Am I missing anything? Those are my bases. I make a spiced tea out of that, and I drink that with some flaxseed in it, and then I eat my greens, and it's a great, powerful combination. It's very soothing. Those are my herbs that I eat.
Excellent. And there have also been some questions about eating for health before, eating for prevention versus eating when you are sick. Is there a difference? Is there something that you would do differently?
Yes, in general, when you're sick, and I'm not sure that I can demonstrate with data, but it's sort of a intuitive kind of conclusion that some of the higher level plant-based doctors have keyed into, and I believe it's true because I believe in natural processes and the way Mother Nature and our bodies work, our physiology. When you're sick, in general, like from a respiratory sickness or whatever, I would decrease your nutritive intake because your body just it can't focus. The absorption, the breaking down and the absorption of food is an extremely expensive process. And you really kind of want your body concentrating on fighting for you. This is why if you see animals who are sick, what do? They just go off into a corner. In the wild, animals know better than we do. They sequester themselves. They stop eating. So in general, I think that when you're sick, you should kind of fast. And I tell patients just to drink water, just to make sure you're drinking your water. Hydrate yourself to make sure you don't get dehydrated. And then you start eating as tolerated. When you feel better and when you're hungry. Human beings come with amazing, amazing platforms in us to tell us what to do. But in our modern lifestyles, we don't listen anymore. So you shouldn't be eating if you're having 104-degree fever and you're lying there and who wants to eat? It's like you're sweating bullets. Why would you want to eat? You know when you'll eat? When your true hunger tells you, you don't have fevers anymore, and you feel a little, that pleasurable sense in your excitement in your stomach rising up to the throat. And you're starting to say, you know what, I feel like having something. Then you eat.
Excellent, thank you. And yeah, there was this phrase, feed a cold, starve a fever, right? Thank you, Jessica, for sharing that. Was there anything else you wanted to say just about specific classes of foods to focus on or foods that we should de-emphasize?
So we talked about the mushrooms, we talked about the garlic, we talked about the cruciferous, and of course the dark nights, right? The blue berries, the dark berries, those dark anthocyanin pigments. They've been also demonstrated to do the same kinds of things that the allicin does in the garlic, that they pick up our natural killer cells. They help to calm down cytokine storms and help protect us from going overboard. So I know they're in short supply now. Those are tough. A lot of the patients have told me when they go to the stores and when I've gone, I tell a lot of our patients in the practice to concentrate on the wild blueberries, because they have higher concentrations of these anthocyanins than the cultured blueberries that you buy, in a basket, raw, fresh, that you eat, and they're cheaper too because they're frozen and they're little and no pesticides or chemicals are usually sprayed on them. They're harvested usually in boreal areas like in Canada and Maine and up north. So, but now they're difficult to find. So, get them when you can, and then, have some more mushrooms and garlic.
So there are a few other questions in the chat I just want to get to here. People wondering about whether sweeteners like honey or maple syrup, will they bother your respiratory health at all?
I don't know if I can give you data that say that exactly, but those sweeteners are not part of a high-level plant diet of whole plant foods. And the reason why they're not is because they're gateways to deterioration of a high-level diet. Remember what I told you in the beginning. You want a high-level diet of plant foods, not, plants with added sweeteners like honey and like pure cane sugar or, agave syrup or stuff like that, because that's a lower level. And what that does is it just leads to degradation of the other components of our diet. And then you're not eating a high level diet. Then your sugars are going up, then it causes insulin resistance if you have that. And didn't I tell you that insulin resistance and diabetes increase your chance for getting COVID-19? So yeah, I wouldn't eat those things.
Mm-hmm. And there was another question also. Do folks with autoimmune disease also have an increased risk of having COVID-19?
From the data there is no available data from Wuhan that we can see. However, you know that people with autoimmune diseases in general, they have a powerful immune system. It's too powerful, and in many instances, they don't get that aspect of their immune attacks is thought to be somewhat protective. The problem with autoimmune patients is when they're given immune crushing drugs. That makes them, yes. People who are on those drugs, like Humira or these checkpoint inhibitors or monoclonal antibodies, that does make you more likely to get COVID-19. We suspect, but I don't strongly suspect. That's why when you go to the rheumatologist and he puts you on these drugs, he says, hey, if you ever get a cold, you have to call me immediately because they don't want you to go down.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
So, and going back again to some practical questions, you talked a little bit before about, if you're freaked out, don't do this or try to do that. Do you think people who are healthy, eating a whole food, plant-based diet or eating much more plant foods than they might otherwise, do you think that we have reason to fear and should go to the nth degree to wipe everything down on all of that? What do you say to people who are healthy?
I do not have reason to fear, and I wouldn't recommend, even from a general point, suggestions of general health. I would not suggest that you be frightened, because being frightened undermines your immune system. And people who eat plant-based whole foods and are healthy, we have the best chance. We have the best chance. So go to the grocery store, get your food, do what you have to, get it, and just go out into the world and know that what you're doing is powerful. And this is why you're doing it, right? You knew that this would happen, or you knew that living like this could help you. Go and live.
Excellent. We're almost at the end of the hour. I want to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about your practice with everyone here, and then we'll do a little closing from Plant Powered.
Sure. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know, we have my practice is in the middle of a beautiful farm. It's a 300-year-old working rare farm in New Jersey. It's about an hour west of New York City, and our primary care practice is right in the middle of the growing fields, surrounded by the fruits and vegetables we grow. And if you want to follow us, we have we always put a lot of helpful posts up. I don't know if we have a little slide with the contact information. Our Instagram account, you'll see a lot of beautiful pictures of the farm. I currently am doing a series. It's called A Day in the Life. So it's a day in the life of me, someone who's working on the front lines and what we're doing here on the farm. You feel free to follow us on Instagram. It's Dr. Ron Weiss, at Dr. Ron Weiss. We have a great Facebook page if you're into Facebook, and it's Ethos Primary Care on Facebook. That's our address. And of course, our website, which has a lot of really great information, is ethoshealth.org. We have a lot of programs. If a lot of you are new to this, or you're looking to kick up your game, we have something for beginners. You don't even have to know anything. It's called the 2-week challenge, which is very reasonably priced, and it's a self-directed program. You can do it on your own speed, at your own time. It's great. It gives you a really good grounding, for a high-level plant-based diet. And then we have other kinds of community programs. I see patients. I'm a primary care doctor. I take care of patients, living patients, every day, from little babies to 105-year-old people, anything that's wrong with them, from toe funguses to migraine headaches to heart attacks. That's what I do. You're always welcome to make an appointment. And I think for this evaluation, I think Asha, our manager, tells us we have 50% off everything, all of our appointments for you guys if you want to make one. And oh, the last thing I wanted to tell you, listen. So we had these great farm day events, which I know a couple of you were at. We have, this happened last year. They're called Ethos Farm Days. And we had Dr. Esselstyn and Colin Campbell and Scott Stoll and Dr. Furman, the world's greatest they speak when they come to the farm. And we were going to have them in August. And we put out save the dates, but it looks like we're not going to be able to assemble. So I just want to put it on your radar. Just follow us on Instagram and these other social media platforms. We'll be announcing our reconstitution, hopefully for 2021, for these fabulous Farm Day destination events.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Weiss. And this is obviously incredibly timely, important information for everyone. We're really excited to have engaged with you at this level to get really specific about what foods to eat and how it will help us. For everyone, I want to thank you for joining us and invite you to come back. We have an ongoing web series tonight for Spanish speakers. We'll have a meetup and a focus on reading nutrition labels at 7 p.m. And on Saturday, there's going to be more details from the dietitian, Gail Mayer, talking about how to live a plant-based lifestyle in very practical terms during a pandemic. That will be Saturday at 3 p.m. And our lovely chef, Carol Levy, will be back doing a culinary demo on Sunday at 3 p.m. So lots of great things coming up, which you can find on our website, which is ppmny.org. I think it's www.ppmny.org. I put it in the chat box as well. You can sign up for our mailing list there and follow us on social media as well. And again, thanks for coming and enjoy the rest of your day. Wherever you are, stay safe and eat your whole plant foods. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Leanna, and thank you, everyone. Blessings and peace to you.
Thank you.